They didn't just steal her books, her priceless first editions. Worth a fortune, they replaced them with fakes, convincing fakes, piece by piece, while living in her house, eating her food, pretending to care for her. And when she noticed, when she dared to question, they told the doctors she was hallucinating, confused, paranoid. They upped her medication, tried to silence her, forever, just to steal her legacy, her life's work, her home. It's sickening, isn't it, what greed can do? What people are capable of, especially those you should trust the most. I'm Victoria. And sometimes the stories I hear, they shake me. This is one of those stories. A story about betrayal so deep, so calculated it leaves you breathless. But it's also a story about fire, the kind of fire that ignites when everything is taken, the kind of righteous fury that burns cold and sharp. Today I'm sharing the story of Elena Vance. Not her real name, of course. She's a woman I came to know, quiet. Meticulous, you'd think she was fragile, especially after her stroke. But beneath that quiet surface, there was steel forged over decades, decades spent with rare books, ancient documents, secrets hidden in ink and paper, secrets they never imagined she possessed. You need to hear how Elena fought back, how she turned their own cruelty against them, with terrifying precision. So settle in, maybe grab a drink. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Because you won't want to miss a single moment of how Elena Vance served justice, cold and complete. A transition to Elena's voice perspective. My world, it had always been quiet, ordered, filled with the scent of old paper bindings. The weight of history in my hands. I was an archivist, a dealer in rare books. For nearly 50 years my home, a rambling old place, was my sanctuary, my library, my legacy. Each book, each manuscript, had a story, a provenance. I knew them like old friends. Then came the stroke, minor, they said. But it left me unsteady, needing help. That's when Marcus arrived, my grandnephew, with his wife. Chloe, smiling, solicitous, full of concern. Aunt Elena will take care of everything. Marcus, my sister's grandson. I hadn't seen him much over the years. He'd always seemed adrift, chasing one failed venture after another. Chloe, polished, ambitious, her eyes always scanning the room, assessing value. I was grateful. At first the house was large. I needed help with stairs, meals, appointments. They moved into the guest wing. Just until you're back on your feet, Auntie. They were so helpful. Too helpful, perhaps. It started subtly, my usual routines disrupted. For your own good, Elena. Friends calling, turned away. She's resting, the doctor said, quiet. My mail sorted by Chloe. Just helping you keep things organized, dear. My medications managed by Marcus. Easier for you this way, don't worry your pretty little head. The house began to feel different, colder, somehow, despite their constant presence. They were always whispering, just out of earshot, glancing at me. Then quickly looking away, I felt managed, controlled. A fog seemed to settle over my days, thicker than just the stroke's after effects. My thinking felt slow, sluggish. Just the medication, Auntie, Marcus would say soothingly, patting my hand. Doing its job. I trusted them, didn't I? They were family, they said they cared, why would I doubt them? My collection, my books, they were my anchor. I'd spend hours in the library, just holding them, running my fingers over the familiar bindings. It grounded me, reminded me who I was before the stroke, before the fog. Then I started noticing things, small things at first. A slight difference in the tooling on a 17th century binding, the paper texture of a beloved first edition feeling wrong, the watermark on a historical document. Not quite right. I'd pick up a book, expecting that familiar weight, the specific feel, and there would be a flicker, a discordance, something off. I mentioned it to Marcus once casually. This Keats first edition, the paper feels different. He laughed, a short, sharp sound. Oh, Auntie, your imagination, maybe the lighting in here. Or perhaps you're just a bit tired today. Chloe chimed in, smooth as silk. Elena, dear, you know how memory can play tricks, especially after, well, you know. She tapped her temple gently, gaslighting. I know the term now. Then it was just confusing, unsettling. Was I losing my mind? Were they right? Was the stroke worse than I thought? The fog in my head seemed thicker on those days, but the feeling persisted, nagging, insistent. These weren't just any asterisk books. They were my books. I knew them intimately. The discrepancies became more frequent, more obvious to me, a signature slightly off, a binding using a modern adhesive technique. A title page that felt too crisp, too new. I started comparing them, secretly, late at night. when Marcus and Chloe were asleep, pulling down similar volumes. Relying on muscle memory, tactile knowledge, my suspicions grew, hardening into a cold dread. They were being swapped, my treasures, replaced with fakes, incredibly skilled fakes, but fakes nonetheless. Who? How? And then the chilling realization it had to be them, Marcus, Chloe, living here, controlling access, managing my life. Why? The money, obviously, my collection was worth millions, accumulated over a lifetime. They saw me as an obstacle. A fadding old woman sitting on their inheritance, their kindness, a mask, their concern, a lie. The depth of the betrayal, it was staggering, like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs, my own family, living under my roof, poisoning my trust, dismantling my life's work book by book. I felt sick, violated, and utterly, terrifyingly alone. They controlled my medication, my communication, my visitors. Who would believe me? The confused old woman seeing phantom forgeries. Just as they planned, I tried to fight the fog, tried to think clearly. I needed proof, undeniable proof. But they were always watching, always hovering. The sedatives, I realized. They weren't just for my stroke recovery, they were keeping me docile, manageable, confused, making their narrative, the narrative of my decline, more believable. Every day was a struggle, pretending normalcy, smiling politely. While inside I was screaming, raging, terrified. They were selling my history, my passion, my soul. Piece by piece on some anonymous corner of the internet. No doubt, replacing it with lies, crafted replicas, erasing me, even while I still breathed. Then came the final cruelty, the act that shattered any remaining illusions, any lingering hope for some mistake, some misunderstanding. My manuscript. For 30 years, I had been working on it, my magnum opus, a detailed study of historical forgery techniques. How to detect them, based on paper analysis, ink composition, binding methods, watermark anomalies. It was everything I knew poured onto those pages, hundreds of pages, meticulously researched, cross-referenced, irreplaceable. My legacy, more valuable to me than any first edition. I kept it in my study, locked away, or so I thought. One morning, I went to work on it, needing that connection to my old self, my sharp mind. The drawer was empty, panic seized me, cold and sharp. I searched the room, frantically, my heart pounding. Marcus, Chloe. My voice trembled. They came in, exchanged a look. That look I was starting to decipher, a mixture of pity and impatience. "What is it, Auntie?" Marcus asked, his voice overly patient. "My manuscript, my research, it's gone," Chloe sighed dramatically. "Oh, Elena, are you sure you didn't misplace it? You've been so forgetful lately." "No," I insisted. "It was right here, locked." Marcus walked over to the waste bin, the large one they kept for shredding, already emptied that morning. He peered inside. Then looked at me, his expression carefully neutral. "Was it perhaps just some old papers?" "Lots of clutter in here, Auntie." Chloe stepped forward, putting a hand on my arm. "Marcus tidied up your study yesterday, dear. He was just trying to help. You know how you let things pile up. He tidied up, he threw it away, my life's work, dismissed as old papers." "Clutter?" I looked at Marcus, saw the flicker of triumph in his eyes, quickly masked. He hadn't just tidied. He had intentionally destroyed it. Why? To erase another part of me. To prevent me from using that knowledge. To wound me in the deepest way possible. Probably all three. That was the moment the fog burned away, replaced by something else, something cold, hard, and utterly furious. The fear vanished, the despair receded. All that remained was rage, a pure, incandescent rage. They hadn't just stolen my books, gaslit me, drugged me. They had attacked my mind, my passion. My very essence. They thought I was finished, a frail old woman easily discarded. They were wrong. They had underestimated the archivist, the historian, the woman who understood the power of hidden knowledge. They had awakened something they would deeply regret. My mind, despite the drugs, began to work methodically, precisely. The game had changed. They wanted to erase me. Fine, I would play their game, but with my rules, and my rules were far more dangerous. Narrator interjects briefly. Can you even imagine the sheer audacity, the cruelty, destroying her life's work, calling it clutter, while systematically robbing her blind? It makes my blood boil just recounting it. This is the point where many would crumble, give up, succumb to the despair, but not Elena. Oh no, that final act of desecration, it didn't break her, it forged her anger into a weapon, and believe me, She knew how to wield it, if you're finding this story as compelling and infuriating as I do. Make sure you're subscribed, ring that notification bell, because the way Elena turns the tables, it's a masterclass. You won't want to miss the fallout. Return to Elena's voice perspective. The rage didn't make me reckless, it made me focused, coldly, terrifyingly focused. I knew I couldn't fight them openly. Not yet. They controlled my environment, my medication, the narrative about my mental state. So I played their game, I leaned into their perception of me. The confusion, I amplified it slightly, asking repetitive questions. Seeming to forget conversations, the frailty, I exaggerated it. Needing more help, moving slower, sighing often, let them think they were winning. Let them get comfortable, careless, inside. My mind was a whirlwind of calculation. Every archivist, every historian learns meticulous observation, documentation. It's second nature. I started documenting everything, the drugs. I learned to recognize the pattern, the timing of the fog, the brief windows of clarity in between. I pretended to swallow pills, palming them when they weren't looking, hiding them, reducing the dose just enough to function, but not enough to alert them. The fakes in my moments of clarity, usually late at night. I used a small digital camera, one they overlooked, a gift from years ago. I took microscopic photos, focusing on the tiny errors only an expert would see, the inconsistencies in paper fibers, ink bleed tool marks on the bindings, comparing them mentally to my intimate knowledge of the originals. Building a digital dossier of forgery, the conversations, I reactivated an old recording device. Disguised as a vintage paperweight on my desk, strategically placed, I captured their whispers, their planning, their contemptuous remarks about my senility, their discussions about contacting dealers, selling off assets, accelerating the plan for guardianship, institutionalization. She'll be happier in a home, Chloe's voice dripping with false concern. She needs professional care. And we need the equity, Marcus, blunt, greedy. This house, the collection, it's our future. Listening to the recordings later, huddled in the dark, the rage burned brighter, fueling my resolve. I needed an ally, someone outside their web of control, my old colleague Julian Croft. A forensic document examiner, brilliant, discreet, owed me a favor from decades ago. Getting the evidence to him was the challenge. Marcus and Chloe monitored everything, mail, phone calls, visitors. I had to be clever. I feigned a renewed interest in, of all things, historical botany specifically. Poisonous plants mentioned in medieval texts. It fit their narrative of eccentricity, harmless rambling. Just keeping my mind active, dear, I'd tell Chloe, showing her illustrations of aconite, nightshade, hemlock. Fascinating, the old remedies and other uses. She'd just roll her eyes, humouring the dotty old woman under the guise of ordering obscure botanical reference books. Books they wouldn't dream of inspecting closely. I arranged a coded communication with Julian. Tucked within the pages of a seemingly innocuous treatise on 17th century horticulture, I placed a microSD card containing the photos, the audio files, a detailed account of the swapped books, the destroyed manuscript, the drugging. I used a specialist courier service I knew from my dealing days, one known for absolute discretion. Addressed to Julian's secure lab, paid for with a hidden emergency credit card they hadn't found, waiting for confirmation. It was agonizing. Days stretched into weeks. I continued the charade, playing the victim, while secretly gathering more evidence, more recordings. Then a coded message arrived, hidden within a new botanical delivery. Julian had everything. He was appalled. He was mobilizing. He would help. Relief washed over me. But it wasn't just relief, it was the chilling certainty that the endgame was approaching, now, for the second phase of my plan, the part born not just of justice, but of that cold, hard ray. They had used manipulation, deceit, chemistry, to control and diminish me. I would return the favor. My research wasn't just in forgery. My deep dives into ancient texts, historical archives, had exposed me to more than just paper and ink. I knew the old ways, the forgotten knowledge, including the subtle arts described in centuries-old pharmacopoeias, alchemical journals, herbalist notes, things you wouldn't find in a modern medical textbook, substances, compounds, derived from seemingly innocuous sources, easily obtainable, overlooked things that, in careful, minute cumulative doses, could induce specific, unsettling and verifiable symptoms, symptoms that mimic rare, confusing conditions, difficult to diagnose, causing immense distress. Without being acutely lethal, I wasn't aiming to kill them. No, that would be too quick, too simple. I wanted them to feel uncertainty, fear, the chilling loss of control over their own bodies, their own minds. Just as they had made me feel, I wanted to watch them unravel, consumed by a medical mystery of their own making, amplified by my subtle suggestions. My knowledge of chemistry, gleaned from analyzing old inks and preservation techniques, was surprisingly relevant. I started, carefully, meticulously, introducing trace amounts into their world, a specific lichen extract, known to cause temporary, blotchy skin discoloration, added to Chloe's expensive facial moisturizer, a metallic salt. Historically used in tinting inks, tasteless, odorless, introduced into the communal coffee pot, known to cause a persistent, unpleasant metallic taste and gradual hair thinning, a nerve agent precursor derived from a common ornamental plant in the garden, subtly infused into the sugar bowl Marcus used so liberally, known to cause fine motor tremors, eyelid twitches, neurological tics, all cumulative, slow-acting, deniable. I kept a precise log, dates, doses, observed effects. Cross-referenced with the historical texts, my archivist's precision turned to a darker purpose. They started complaining quietly at first, then with increasing alarm Chloe, horrified by the strange patches appearing on her face, blaming allergies, expensive cosmetics, stress, Marcus, complaining of a constant metallic taste, food tasting off, his hand trembling when he lifted his coffee cup, dismissing it as too much caffeine, lack of sleep. They became irritable, anxious, snapping at each other. They went to doctors, specialists, blood tests came back, inconclusive, neurological exams, confusing. Maybe it's stress, the doctors suggested, or perhaps something environmental. I watched, feigning sympathy, offering herbal tea, so soothing for the nerves, dear. Inside, the cold fire burned, steady, controlled. They were trapped, spiraling, just as they intended for me. But my trap was woven from their own greed, their own dismissal of me, and the forgotten corners of history. The evidence against them was secure with Julian. Their own bodies were becoming testament to something unsettling. It was almost time to bring the curtain down on their cruel little play, time for the final act. My confrontation, I instructed Julian. He contacted my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman I'd used for years, briefed her completely. We arranged a meeting at my house in my library, my territory. Marcus and Chloe were told it was about estate planning adjustments. Something to pique their greed, ensure their attendance. My lawyer, Sarah, arrived first. Then Julian, carrying a discreet briefcase. Marcus and Chloe came in expectant, slightly wary, but still confident, still believing they held all the cards. They looked unwell. Chloe's makeup couldn't quite hide the discoloration. Marcus's hand had a noticeable tremor as he reached for a glass of water. I sat in my usual chair, appearing frail, but my eyes were sharp, steady. Sarah began, laying out the legal situation, calmly, professionally. Then she paused, looked at Marcus and Chloe. Before we proceed, Ms. Vance has some serious matters to address regarding her property and her well-being. Julian opened his briefcase. He presented the evidence methodically, clinically, the enlarged photographs of the fakes side by side with images of the originals, highlighting the discrepancies, auction records of the sales, traced back to shell accounts linked to Marcus, the audio recordings. Playing snippets of their conversations, plotting the guardianship, mocking my confusion, discussing the sale of my assets, admitting to destroying the manuscript. Just shred the old bat's ramblings, more room for things we can actually sell. Their faces drained of colour, mouths agape, shock, disbelief. Turning to horror, Chloe started to bluster. "This is ridiculous, fabricated, she's confused," Marcus stammered. "Lies, all lies, she's paranoid." Sarah cut them off cold as ice. "We have forensic authentication of the forgeries, digital tracking of the sales, voice analysis confirmation, medical records showing the escalation of sedatives correlating with your arrival." She paused, letting the weight sink in. The police would find this very interesting. So would the medical board regarding the manipulation of Ms. Vance's medication. They were cornered, trapped by the evidence. But I wasn't finished. This was my moment. I spoke, my voice quiet but clear, resonant. No hint of the frailty I had feigned for months. You tried to erase me, my work, my mind. I gestured towards them, subtly indicating their own visible distress, Chloe's skin, Marcus's tremor. And now you seem to be experiencing some difficulties yourselves. I picked up a slim volume from the table beside me, an obscure 17th century medical text open to a marked page. It's fascinating, what one finds in old books, I said conversationally. Ancient descriptions of ailments, afflictions caused by environmental factors, rare substances, sometimes presenting with skin anomalies, persistent metallic tastes, neurological disturbances. I didn't look at them directly, just gazed at the page. Difficult to diagnose, modern medicine often baffled. Sometimes these things run in families, genetic predispositions, or perhaps exposure, carelessness. I let the words hang in the air, heavy with implication, ambiguity. The terror in their eyes, it was profound. They weren't just facing exposure for theft and fraud, they were facing a horrifying, unknown medical future. A future I had subtly, chillingly painted for them. Had they ingested something, accidentally? Were they predisposed? Was it contagious? Or worse, had she? The implication hung unspoken, more potent for its silence. The fear of the unknown, the potential for endless tests, specialists, social stigma, career ruin, it broke them. Chloe started sobbing hysterically. Marcus, white-faced, shaking uncontrollably now, looked utterly defeated. Sarah stepped in briskly. Ms. Vance is prepared to offer a resolution outside of the authorities under specific non-negotiable conditions. One full confession, written, signed, detailing the theft, the gaslighting, the destruction of the manuscript, the medication manipulation. 2, immediate restitution, liquidation of all their assets, sale of their property, whatever it took, to repay the full market value of every stolen item, plus significant damages for emotional distress and the destruction of intellectual property. Every single cent accounted for. 3, signed legal agreements, barring them from ever contacting Ms. Vance again, directly or indirectly, staying a minimum of 500 miles away from her residence, forever. Violation would trigger immediate release of all evidence to the authorities. 4, they leave this house, today, now. With only the clothes they are wearing, nothing else, silence, except for Chloe's ragged sobs. Marcus looked at me, a flicker of his old arrogance trying to surface, then dying as he saw the absolute resolve in my eyes, the cold knowledge he knew. He knew they had no choice, the alternative, public ruin, criminal charges, and the terrifying, ambiguous medical nightmare I had planted in their minds was unthinkable. He nodded, defeated. We agree. The fallout was swift and brutal, just as I intended. Sarah supervised the confessions, the legal agreements. Financial advisors were brought in, overseeing the immediate liquidation of Marcus and Chloe's assets, their trendy apartment, their car, their investments, jewelry, everything. It wasn't quite enough to cover the full value plus damages, but it left them utterly ruined, destitute, facing a future stripped bare. They left my house that same day, hollow-eyed, broken, carrying nothing but their fear and their shame, and the lingering physical symptoms I had inflicted, a constant reminder of their downfall. I never heard from them again directly. Whispers reached me. Eventually, through the grapevine, they had moved far away, living in obscurity, plagued by debt, social pariahs among anyone who knew even a fraction of the story. Chloe's social climbing ambitions shattered, Marcus's dreams of easy wealth evaporated, and the strange medical symptoms, apparently, they persisted, a source of ongoing anxiety, endless doctor visits, mounting bills, a chilling private punishment that gnawed at them. Long after the financial ruin, I made sure the subtle exposures ceased the moment they left, but the psychological damage, the fear I instilled, that would last a lifetime. As for me, slowly, carefully, I reclaimed my life. With the sedatives gone, my mind cleared completely, sharper than ever, perhaps, honed by the ordeal. I used the restitution funds to repurchase some of my stolen books. Where possible, for those lost forever, the money served as a cold comfort, a symbol of justice served, my house, my sanctuary, felt clean again, cleansed of their toxic presence. I reconnected with true friends, the ones they had turned away, finding warmth and support, and my manuscript. Destroyed, yes, but not entirely lost, my notes, my outlines, my encyclopedic memory. I began the painstaking process of reconstructing it. It was arduous, but fulfilling, a final act of defiance against their attempt to erase me. The reconstructed work felt stronger, imbued with a new layer of understanding, resilience. Life resumed, quieter now, perhaps more guarded, the trust once given freely now earned cautiously. But I felt powerful, not just recovered, but transformed. I had faced the worst kind of betrayal, looked into the abyss of despair, and found within myself a core of steel I never knew existed. I had channeled my righteous fury not into blind destruction, but into precise, calculated, devastating justice. I used the knowledge they dismissed, the history they ignored, the mind they tried to dull, to utterly dismantle them. Was it ruthless? Yes. Was it harsh? Absolutely. But was it just? In my library, surrounded by my reclaimed treasures, holding my reconstructed manuscript, I knew the answer. It was the only justice possible, for a betrayal so absolute. Peace finally settled over me, a hard-won peace, etched with the memory of fire, but peace nonetheless. They tried to bury me. They didn't know I was a seed. A transition back to Victoria's voice. Wow, just wow, Elena's story, it stays with you, doesn't it? The level of calculated cruelty she endured, it's almost unbelievable. And the way she fought back, using her unique knowledge, her incredible intellect, turning their own tactics against them with such chilling precision. It's intense. Some might say her methods were extreme, crossing a line, inflicting physical symptoms, psychological torment, even if non-lethal, even if they arguably deserved it. Was it justice? Or was it revenge? Does the depth of the betrayal justify the harshness of the response? Where is that line? And who gets to draw it? I'd honestly love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. This is the kind of story that sparks debate. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? That strength comes in many forms, often hidden, often underestimated. And that righteous anger, when focused, can be an incredibly powerful force. Elena Vance, or whatever her real name is, found her power in the face of obliteration, and used it decisively. Her story is a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the fierce, unwavering will to reclaim one's life, one's legacy. Thank you for listening, for sharing this space with me and with Elena's incredible story. If you found this narrative compelling, please consider subscribing, sharing it with someone who might appreciate it. Stories like these, they need to be heard. They remind us of the complexities of human nature, both the darkness and the unexpected light that can emerge from it. I'm Victoria, and I'll be back soon with another story you won't forget. Take care and stay vigilant.